So today I wanted to do a video highlighting a few smaller releases that either got very limited theatrical releases for a very short period of time or went straight to video on demand or streaming. I of course didn't do individual reviews for these movies because I tend to focus on like the larger releases that are in theaters. I think that's what people care about more. So I wanted to highlight some that have been released that I haven't talked about yet because I don't want these to be brushed under the rug. I don't want them to be forgotten in the beginning of this year, and I want to share them and so you can go watch them. I'll do another one of these videos, maybe even two more of these videos later in the year, just highlighting some smaller movies that you probably haven't seen yet. The movies we're going to talk about today, there's 4 movies in total, and they all fall about at the hour and a half mark. There's only one that's an hour and 45, so they're all really short and easy watches if that's what you're looking for. And all of these are super entertaining. I rated them all the same, surprisingly, but at the end of the day, all entertaining, and I really enjoyed watching all of these. So some of these movies may be streaming on different platforms, so make sure you check whatever country you're located in. Like I know Shudder isn't available in every country, and luckily I'm working with NordVPN on this video today, so hopefully that'll help you out a little bit because we have a great deal specifically for my viewers. Now I think a VPN nowadays is just essential when you're using the internet because there is just so much hacking and password attacks and malware, and NordVPN has a really great feature called threat protection, which is always running in the background even if you're not connected to a VPN, and it works no matter where you're located. If you're going to the coffee shop to do some work, it helps protect you there, and it just protects you from all of these things, the malware, the cyber attacks, etc. But like I mentioned, NordVPN can help you out with this video specifically because you can access any country's streaming service with a VPN. It blocks your IP address, so all you have to do is click anywhere on the map wherever you want to go, and you'll refresh your streaming site, and then you have access to all of that country's streaming content. So make sure to go to my link here or click the link down in the description box below and get the exclusive NordVPN deal with 4 bonus months for free. It is completely risk-free because they have a 30-day money-back guarantee. The first movie I want to talk about is my favorite smaller film that's been released this year, and I didn't give it like a super high rating by any means, but this movie was just made for me. This is like if I wrote a short story, this is just what I want to write, man. And that is Lovely, Dark, and Deep. This came out back in February and follows a new backcountry ranger that travels alone through the dangerous wilderness, hoping to uncover the origins of a tragedy that has haunted her since she was a child. This stars Georgina Campbell as the lead, and I was just really surprised that this was such like a small movie that literally no one talked about it. I didn't see anyone talk about it. I was just baffled because Georgina Campbell is also going to be in The Watchers this year, and I feel like people are going to know her for that, and she's obviously from Barbarian, but you gotta watch Lovely, Dark, and Deep. Like I was really in love with this movie, just the aesthetics and the atmosphere. Everything about it, it was just like a Sarah movie, 100%, which means it's not going to be everyone's movie. But if you like my taste and you like naturey movies, like this is camping, woods, it's set in a national park, it is just stunning. And this is written and directed by Teresa Sutherland, and it is her first feature-length film debut, so I thought she did a great job with this being her first like full-length movie. And people say, obviously every horror creator gets asked like, oh, if you were to make a movie, what would you make? And mine would be this movie, but found footage. If I were to make a movie, it'd be found footage, 100%. But it'd be something like this, where it's like a little bit paranormal or like supernatural elements set in the woods in a national park. Kind of like Blair Witch Project. I would just make the Blair Witch Project. That's a joke. I wouldn't actually do that, because obviously I'm not gonna just remake a movie. You know how I feel about remakes right now. Anyways, the reason why I didn't rate this movie super high, it probably deserves a 4 from me, and I might change my rating for it, but it has some questionable plot points and character decisions, especially towards the end, that didn't make sense to me and kind of took me out of it a little bit, and I wish they cleaned that up a little bit more because it had so much potential. The potential of this movie could have been one of my favorite movies of the year. Well, it is probably going to be one of my favorites overall, like just entertainment wise and visuals and everything, but it probably would have been like top 3 had it, you know, had a little bit better storytelling towards the end. Some of these scenes are just genuinely so unsettling to look at, and a lot of it is kind of in daytime, actually, and I think that's really cool. It's not a daytime horror. There are a lot of night scenes as well, but some of the scares take place during the day and are still horrifying and still effective, and that's when you know it's a good movie at building tension, if it could just be like in broad daylight and still be really creepy. This one is definitely one that I will rewatch again and again for those cozy camping, if I'm in like a cozy camping mood, you know what I mean? Definitely great for like a summer movie because it just feels like camping in summer, outdoorsy, and it definitely has a lot of supernatural elements in it, which I love. Feels like a fever dream. Fever dream is like the perfect way to describe the horror elements in this because it is very bizarre and very unsettling. And I'm really bummed that this did not go to theaters. Like, this in a theater would have been really, really great, at least for me, obviously, because I'm biased and I love anything set in the woods. But now it's just chilling on Tubi. It's just on Tubi, and that is wild to me. No offense to Tubi. They have great movies over there, but usually that's where movies go after they've been released for a long time. So for it to just go straight there after being video on demand for a short while, like, I rented this movie. I paid money to watch it before it was even on Tubi, and I went to film this video and write this video out and saw it was on Tubi. So anyway, it's free on Tubi, so go watch it. The ads might take you out of it a little bit, but hello motorcycle, but you know how Tubi works by now, so if you're probably familiar with the ads and everything like that. But I do feel like no one's talking about this movie, and that is very disappointing because I genuinely really thought this movie was good. Keep in mind, it's not great, and not everyone's going to like it. But if you usually like my recommendations, I think you'll like this one. I mean, it's definitely better than Night Swim and Imaginary, and those got theatrical releases. Like, this one, those should have been straight to streaming. This one should have been in theaters. That's just my thoughts. Next up, we have Humane, which came out in April. Again, there was some talk about it before it came out, but then as soon as it came out, everyone stopped talking about it. I feel like no one saw it. I think people were waiting for it to come out in theaters and just thought it just passed them by or something, or like, oh, it's delayed. It came out, guys. Humane came out, and no one mentioned it after that. So this is directed by Caitlin Cronenberg, obviously sister to Brandon Cronenberg and daughter of David Cronenberg, but this steers very far off from what her brother and dad usually do. This isn't very body horror, but it does have those sci-fi elements a little bit. So this is about a global environmental collapse that forces world leaders to take extreme measures to reduce Earth's population. Now, the concept for this immediately hooked me in. So basically, Earth has to reduce their population by 20%. So every country has to have 20% participants willing to die. That's great. I love that dystopian aspect. It didn't feel dystopian in the movie, kind of. There's some elements, but I thought it would be a much larger scale and like feel bigger than it was. It was actually a smaller focus. And I love that it feels dystopian and sci-fi-esque, but it still feels very grounded. That's my favorite kind of sci-fi, is when it feels grounded in reality, like it could happen in the next 10 to 20 years. That's my favorite. But like I said, this is a smaller focus, so it focuses on a family during a dinner, basically, and then there's tension involved, and it kind of reminded me of You're Next. There's a little bit of comedic elements in this, but definitely not as much as You're Next, so don't expect like the same tone. But I think if you're a fan of You're Next, or like familial dinner evening movies like that, then you would like Humane. So the Canadian distribution company, Elevation Pictures, and the American distribution company for it, IFC, both thought that this had very limited commercial value. Like, they didn't think it would make a lot of money, so they did a very limited release, which obviously led to it bombing. And that is such a disappointment. Like, I feel so bad for Caitlin Cronenberg because this is her first movie and I think she deserves better than that. This movie was good. I had a lot of fun with it. It wasn't exactly what I expected it to be, and I, was hoping it would be a little bit bigger. But then when it started focusing on the family, I was like, all right, I like these kind of movies. you know? There's a lot of tension, kind of like House of Usher a little bit, you know? And this wasn't like a perfect movie by any means. Something about it felt kind of lower budget, and the political and climate messaging in it felt a little bit weak. Like it was just kind of in the backdrop, and they didn't focus on it, which maybe that's a benefit for some of you. But I do wish they pushed that a little bit more. And there was some political elements to it, like one of the family members is different from the other family, you know? But the political messaging and everything was just kind of an accessory to this, and it wasn't very strong in it. But I don't know if that's even what they were going for. But definitely check it out. You do have to rent or buy it on Prime or Apple TV. I think it's on there. So whatever you rent movies on, go check it out. It was really entertaining. Next up, we have Stopmotion, and this is one that I think most people knew about and reviewed and talked about. So you probably have seen this, or at least have heard of it by now. And this also came out back in February. This follows a talented stop-motion animator who becomes consumed by the grotesque world of her horrifying creations with deadly results. So this is directed by Robert Morgan, who is no stranger to the stop-motion art form. If you've seen ABCs of Death, he did letter D for delousing in that, which is a stop motion short film. And he's actually won many awards for his short stop motion films in the past. And I do think this one had more potential than it lived up to. I really, really liked this movie, don't get me wrong, but again, I was expecting something else with this. I don't know what, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more grotesque and a little bit more gory and whatnot, but I feel like the pacing made it where it wasn't consistent. Like, I didn't feel tension throughout most of the movie, and then it just like ramps up in the end. Obviously, the visuals and the stop motion aspects of this were incredible. Like, that's why you would watch this. They're so interesting to look at. Like, I love the technique, and apparently using like real meat in stop motion isn't uncommon, or like there are artists who do that in real life, which sounds disgusting, but hey, if it works, it looked effective in this. I don't know if they did actually use it in this, but if they did, it looked great. And obviously the stop motion elements were super weird and grotesque, as they say, and just bizarre. And I loved that aspect of it. Like, it was just really weird to look at, but they're still like little cute stop motion characters. I liked them. Like I said, the storytelling wasn't great though. So that's the only weaker element I think in this. It felt a little bit rushed in the end, and it just wasn't balanced. I feel like it remained slow for too long in certain parts, and there was like a lot more going on in the background that we didn't have enough time to really care about. I don't know. It just wasn't perfect storytelling, but the visuals in this were great, and the ending was phenomenal. Like, disturbing, weird, and creepy, and I loved that. Again, felt rushed in the end, but it was the best part of the movie. I loved it. I will say the performances were great, and I just loved the overall idea of this movie as well. So the last movie we're going to talk about is a French movie called Infested, and this is a Shudder original. Passionate about exotic animals, Caleb brings a venomous spider home, but it accidentally slips away. Soon residents of the apartment building are battling an army of deadly, rapidly reproducing spiders. Now, this came out back in April. I don't have arachnophobia, but if you do not watch this. Don't watch the rest of this video, actually. I'm going to tell you that because I'm going to put in some trailer. Don't watch it. Because, oh my God, even I was squirming. I'm not scared of spiders. I catch and release. I can deal with them. No problem. I was squirming. I was like, no, please God, no. Please don't. No. I believe that this had a limited theater release in France before being released onto Netflix, which is interesting because they usually have a 15-month delay that's required, like legally required in France, before a movie can go onto streaming or video on demand. And I know there's been a lot of conversation lately about the quick turnaround time between when a movie is released in theaters and when it is out on streaming. And I feel like that window, that time span is really close. It's getting very small, like down to 2 weeks. Some movies come out on streaming in 2 weeks' time. That's definitely not enough time for a theatrical release. So let me know your thoughts on that. So the intention for the writer and director of this movie is to portray how Black and Arab people are discriminated against in France. And so he chose spiders to kind of represent that, because both are unwanted and usually not welcome. And everyone in this movie is kind of treated like vermin, which is where he got the original title name for this movie in French. So I thought that was interesting that there was like a social element in the writing of this movie. And I'm sure there's CGI in this, but they did use 200 giant huntsman spiders. There are real spiders in this, which is again another reason why if you have arachnophobia, do not watch this, because I was getting the heebie-jeebies so much in this, and I'm pretty sure most of this was filmed practically. I'm not gonna lie, it looked amazing. Like the horror in this, I don't care about creature features usually. I don't really care about bugs. Those don't freak me out. And given the concept of this movie, I wasn't too excited to watch this. It wasn't really one that I thought I would enjoy that much. I was sucked into this. I was so invested, and like the pacing in this one was incredible. The balancing between the actual story, the social commentary, if you will, and the spiders and the horrific elements, like it gets started pretty quickly. And I thought the pacing in this was really, really good. Performances, super believable. I was highly impressed with this one, and I really don't want this one to fly under the radar either for this year. So I knew I had to highlight this in a video at some point, because this is definitely one of the stronger movies that I've watched this year. So please, please go watch it on Shudder if you have Shudder. So that's all I'm going to talk about today, but I do have a list ongoing of smaller releases that I have to catch up on. There's a new found footage movie that was released this year called Frogman. I definitely want to watch that. But let me know if there are any other smaller releases that you can think of that you've enjoyed or that are coming out later this year, and I'll try to do some more videos like spotlighting them a little bit so we don't forget about them, because I just feel bad for these small movies that are really, really good and really entertaining, and then no one talks about them because we're all talking about The Strangers Chapter 1, you know what I mean? Which, go watch my video on that one if you want to hear the most mad I've ever been, probably, about a movie. So yeah, make sure to leave a comment and check out NordVPN's exclusive deal down in the description box. Thank you again to NordVPN for working with me on this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.